Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Solutions with Shanti, broadcasting from the heart of the Ankara field. Welcome back. And this is our third episode of Spiritual Forensics with the beautiful and amazing Beverli Rhodes. And tonight we're going to be shedding some light on the false saint, Mother Rasputin. Holy vows and unholy crimes. Well, we'll talk about her in a minute when Beverly comes on. But certainly she's been labeled the most prolific female serial killer of all time. Um, Female, I think that sounds like male too. I think she way outweighs the males there. She's been, 177 cases have been proven against her of murder, but they reckon around 500. So, very interesting topic we're going to be chatting about and shedding some light on tonight. So, yay, join us and get everyone to come and join in and grab your chai, taram, grab your tea or your beverage of choice, put your legs up, feet up, and enjoy. We're just going to go through the schedule tonight. And of course, we are doing a promo with our amazing sponsor, Spooky Too. But here's our schedule coming up. Okie doke. So we are now on Tuesday, right? Gosh, I don't even know what day it is anymore. Again, last night, fantastic show with Beverly on Aquarius Rising Africa. So if you haven't missed that one yet, please go and grab it. We spoke about, wow, the Epstein saga, connecting again to the royals. Beverly does really good um, deep dives on that. So it's a great one to watch, see what's happening there. I've actually never come across anyone that actually reads like Beverly, reads the aura. So she looks at the aura. And then, well, as you guys have been watching, you would know that. And then obviously dissects what she sees there, which is amazing. And yes, this morning, part 5 of the mini series of the Ankara field, where I just explain what the Ankara field is. Today we spoke about what the dark nest is. So yeah, join us. Well, yeah, if you haven't caught that, catch that one here on Solutions. And then, of course, early on as well with Jamie J, really amazing researcher. So catch her shows there. And now, right with Beverly, we are. Tomorrow, Double Trouble with Jesse. We're going to be looking at part 3 of the Karudi codes. And I forget the other one now offhand, but yeah, it's on the program, so check it out. And then, of course, Thursday with Dr. Dennis Carroll again. Look forward to having him back. And Friday, drop in with Shanti or hang out with Shanti or drop in with Shanti. Where we just hang out for an hour or so, see what's popped up on my screen for the week, do a little bit of an insight on that. And yeah. And then Anna Botkova, she's the tennis player that was trafficked and abused by her stepfather / tennis coach in the professional arena. So we've already done the first interview. So tomorrow we'll be doing, just the second part and wrapping up Anna's story. So catch us for that. It always shocks me, I've got to tell you, young innocent girls that are absolutely abused at such a young age. Anyway, and then Leo Zagami, our favorite Italian, on Friday night. Penny Bradley Saturday. Gosh, fantastic interview with Penny. Wow, what a wealth of information. So Penny Bradley coming up again on Saturday. Her life on Mars as a secret super space program survivor, and life on Mars, all of these things. Very, very interesting catching up with all our guests as well. And by the way, we're putting out something on both our channels now called Spotlight on our guests. So watch out for that. So we're just doing a little, not a promo, but a bio, just giving you an idea of who they are, where they come from, all the links to their shows, their platforms, their supports, their books, etc. So watch out for that, and please share, share, share. Our survivors really deserve every bit of support that they can get. And as we know on this platform by now, they are highly targeted. Gosh, the more I get to know people who've survived this horrific ordeal, it's so interesting to see how they are still surrounded by those that wish to take them down. So it's really important that we can support them in the way that we can. Obviously, they are triggered around every corner. Their finances are hit around every corner. So, let's just support them in every way that we can, because God knows they deserve it. What these women and men have come through as kids, there are still days I marvel, and I still really, really marvel after all this time. So hats off to all you guys that have come through this horrific stuff. And now, thank you to our beautiful our show sponsor, Spooky 2. I'm just going to pop that up. The creators of the home rifle machines. So from teeny little mingly rifle machines that you plug into your laptop and run a program, to the much larger ones that you use for much more serious illnesses or issues. There's an entire range of them that you can go and check out. Spooky 2 is still having their Black Friday month, so 10% off on all their rifle machines. You can just check in the description. Use the codes there, and then you will get 10% off your Spooky 2 rifle machine. So we're just going to pop up a little promo video before we bring our beautiful Beverli on.
Hello, my name is Alan, and I wanted to share this video about the benefits of Spooky 2 and how I've applied it to my life and some of the results I've gotten, which are really important for anybody else considering this purchase. The first thing I wanted to talk about is how I saved thousands of dollars on using Spooky 2 on a tree that we have outside in the front yard. My tree is a maple tree. It is about 30 feet tall. And 2 years ago, it was summer, it was June, and instead of the leaves opening up completely, they were kind of like folding over. The tree was diseased. And instead of having it cut down, we decided to take a leaf clipping, put it into the remote, and we ran it for a little while. The next year, when the tree came back up, all the leaves were perfect. The tree is healthier than ever. And even in fall, the leaves didn't even fall that fast. So that was the number one thing. When I used Spooky 2 for my headaches, I tried many headache programs. The programs that I used were all known and unknown causes. I used neck tension or sore neck, stiff neck, stuff like that, which I thought might be contributing to it. But then after a while, I found a program which was to do with liver and gallbladder. I ran those programs, and after 6 months of having continuous headaches, all of a sudden they disappeared, and I didn't even notice because it was so subtle. I was so used to every day at about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, starting to experience that headache, and it was gone. So again, that was a gallbladder and liver program. I was running the biofeedback, but I don't know what made me think about, I have a fatty liver. I had a gallbladder attack a couple of years ago, and maybe there was something going on in there. And thank you, Spooky, as well.
Wow. I mean, I know Spooky 2 works with animals. I didn't know they actually help trees and nature as well. Just shows you, frequency is everything. When the frequency starts being aligned again, when our natural frequency starts being aligned again, then healing is the order of the day. Healing, it doesn't mean you are broken or in any of it. It really just means your body needs to get back into balance. So that's actually amazing as a testimony. So thank you, everybody. And yay, welcome, everybody. It's so good to see you. Linda, Just Shah, 81, Mandy, Lisa D, there you are. I was looking for a wench with a wrench. And of course, Monet. Without any further ado, ta-da. Hello, madame.
Hello,
Happy
hello,
Tuesday.
hello. From a very cold UK.
How are
Absolutely
you?
freezing. Seriously, it's freezing.
Wow. Look, I mean, I know, I've heard it's cold there, but I mean, and you saying it's cold as well. And I'm just very happy that we have some warmth here again. So we'll keep our sun for a while. Thanks.
Send it
Beverli,
over in a
nice to
bottle.
see you again.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you as well. Gosh, this was an interesting case, wasn't it? Oh my goodness.
Right. So do you want to like maybe just give our viewers a little bit of a synopsis on what who Mother Rasputin is?
Yes, well, she was a Greek Orthodox nun, and she was around from sort of 1900 right through from 19 to 1923. So she did a lot of work. She was one of the 7 main founding nuns in Greece that founded a particular monastery or convent, if you like. And it was established in the honor of Mother Mary. So it was one of the convents that was a presentation of Mary. And it was part of a really, really, really old movement. But what was really interesting is before she actually joined the cloister and went into the convent, she didn't really have any background. And the other aspect with her is that she was from a place called Keratia in Greece. That's where she was born. She was born in 1883. And I was trying to research anything about her sort of a young life in Keratia from 1883. We know that she was she did grow up in the Megalou Alexandru Street area, very different from any of the other women that had decided to go into like a monastery or a convent. And what was interesting with her is that to try and find anything about her life before she came into the convent, which was in the 1900s, very little information. So I had to rely on remote viewing, and I had to go in and have a look and see what could be found. And her name was Marina. It's a very nice Greek name, really lovely. And her surname, her born surname, was Sulakiotou. So she was part of a very specific branch, and she took a shining to the Archbishop Matthew, and he was the one who was much older, and he was in the monastery, and he was doing a lot of really good work. And he was able then to decide, when he got much older in his like 70s, what he did is he then said to her, you take over the monastery, you do like the day-to-day running, you do everything that's needed to keep the monastery going, and where necessary, find donations, find a way to get it to keep going. So, she was trusted by him because he was sort of the person that was running the monastery at the time. And, what I found really interesting is that Miriam, they came across her initially, strangely. What kicked all this off was something as general as an investigation into the exportation to Cyprus of olive oil, and then also the importation of car tires. Who knew? So that's where it all started. And I thought, what? Why would you start looking into, people expiring and, wrongdoing with wills that were forged and properties that were given to a fantastic convent, when you are actually investigating the monastery for olive oil exportation to Cyprus? Really? Who knew? And then the importation of tires. It's like this unusual way of finding out and uncovering all the things that was happening with the Miriam individual, which was fraud and causing individuals to expire. So there were 3 separate criminal trials against her. But the most important thing was that in 1954, they'd managed to find 177 victims. But most people at the time only thought that there were 27. And what she was doing is she was looking at fake treatment for unlicensed treatment for tuberculosis in the convent, which then was offering them a residency in the convent to help them with TB, but more importantly, without any medical care, because the only time that the doctors went into the convent was to sign the certificate that said those individuals had expired. That was it. Also, what I found was there was something ridiculous, like over 70 different police officers, individuals, and all sorts of other, FBI and all sorts of people. I thought, good Lord, this is a lot of people, people from, the criminal and justice system, as well as individuals that were looking for people that had disappeared in America. They had sent FBI officers across into Greece to start looking for them, because they'd managed to trace that these people had ended up in this area of the Healer on Pine Mountain, was as far as Australia. The Sun newspaper in Australia had called this person the Healer on the Pine Mountain. And there was also all sorts of claims that were happening, almost like miraculous. So there was a lot going on in that very small mountain area. And she did, even though she was very good as the head of the monastery, and she assumed those responsibilities when the Archbishop Matthew, he was about 78, 79. So he was definitely handing over the reins to her, because she was very good at management. She was very good at making sure that that particular monastery or convent kept going. And it had a lot of the high-ranking nuns in there as well. That's why she was part of the original 7. So, but she ran like a really strong, sort of almost military type convent, very, very strong. And, she was able to encourage and bring in very wealthy women, as well as not just the women, but their children as well. And she was able to coerce them into leaving either their property or their jewelry, or if they had money in the bank, getting those. And she had, by the time she was taken away and put into prison for all of those violent criminal murders, she'd already amassed 300 houses and farms, as well as the authorities found gold, jewelry, diamonds, rubies, you name it, was all part of this, which didn't really fit well with being an abbess, which is the head of a convent, and also being a nun. And this is where the police were prompted to start looking further afield, looking in Australia, looking in America, because there was a number of complaints that went to the police in that area, where they had complained that the will that they had got had been written and signed under coercion, and that these various complaints to the authorities had said, I'm accusing that monastery, the leadership in that monastery, of blackmail and threats, and doing all those sorts of things. And one of the young girls that came to the monastery was only 18 years old. And she was from Ohio in America. And she went missing in 1949. The FBI traced her all the way to Greece. And the Greek chap who was the young girl, the 18-year-old's dad, he had been talking to the authorities. He'd been speaking to Greece. And he personally named the Miriam person because he'd met her when she had traveled to America to collect the property that his daughter had bequeathed to the convent. And that was in 1951. So when you start having a look at all the previous aspects, we kind of realize that she was a very scheming type of person. And she was able to make sure that those that had a lot of money made sure that they were either kept downstairs in the various cloisters underneath the convent, or ended up, expiring under very superstitious circumstances. And there was 150 of those, 150. And then there were all the others on top of it. And the survivors, because when all of the police, which was in December 1950, those authorities that raided the monastery and the convent, they managed to remove 36 children, just 36 children from the dungeons. And they also managed to free about 7 or 8 really elderly women who were malnourished, who actually were in chains in the basement. And also they had a look and saw that there was very little food, and that there were all sorts of charges, because then they realized that not only was that happening, but that their issues with the monastery and the convent section was not just about the illegal export of olive oil to Cyprus and the illegal importation of tires, but also there was all of this other nonsense that was happening in the basement of the convent, where she was claiming to be able to cure all these illnesses and help people, but she only preyed on women and children. And in some of the cases, the women were taken with their children. There was one woman who was taken who had her entire set of children with her, and all of those children expired. So not only was she taking it from very wealthy women, she was making sure that those children that could have then, gone to the authorities and said, this was my mother, she's expired, but I'm actually her heir, she made sure that she removed all of them as well. So she had a lot of other cases against her, but the public prosecutor had 13 monasteries, including that monastery, which had fraud, forgery of wills, blackmail, torture, and homicide. And she was the one that was facing the worst of the charges, because she'd already had a long, long list of individuals that kind of went into the monastery and just never came out the other side. 300 properties and farms had been ceded and handed over to the monastery. So they had a lot of questions, and it was a huge operation, because when they went into the monastery, there was in the region of about 70 or 80 officers, FBI, and all sorts of other individuals that were part of investigations, including, those that work with like the illegal exportation of goods like oil, and then the importation officer, they were there as well. I mean, it was a huge operation where they went in, but what they found wasn't just goods. It was these terrible conditions that these women and children were in. And that is a lot of children to be found in a convent in such a tortured and poor state of health. It was absolutely awful. So what we decided to do is have a look at her energy. Have a look what she was doing. And why was it that these confirmed victims were those particular types? So it was quite interesting that some of them there was also a Mr. and Mrs., as well as their children. So there were two sets of families that both of those families died of starvation, but that was only after they had transferred their home, their properties, everything that they had in the bank was also transferred to her. She was also very clever. She had two of the sisters that were in the convent helping her, Sister Marina and Sister Theodote. They were both accused of misconduct. They were both beaten within an inch of their lives, and both of them were rushed to hospital because they were hemorrhaging. Both of them passed away. So when you start looking at how she was running the ministry, if you like, from the convent, what was very interesting is that she was able to be seen as almost like a cult leader. And when she was at her best, at that level where she was really, it was happening for her, she had over 400 followers, most of which were living at the monastery, but some also was another 100 people that were living outside of the monastery. And that 100 sets of people had actually willed all their properties and everything that they had, again, to her and to the monastery and to the convent. So when her arrest happened, people were like really surprised. But then they started realizing actually what she was and how she was operating. And part of that information is quite difficult to get because a lot of that information was closed and locked and has had a particular time frame on it before it would be released again. So very interestingly, she died at the age of 71. And when we started working on this, Shanti and I started working on it on the 23rd of November. And actually, she passed away on the 23rd of November in 1954. So it's no coincidence that we happened to start looking at her on exactly the date that she had actually transitioned and gone across to the other side. But she was buried there. She was actually buried right near the Bishop Matthew. She was buried right near him. So everything that she had done, even though she was a very difficult individual and a lot could be proven, because what was connected to her was young girls were disappearing. And all the authorities knew that they were disappearing on this Keratia convent right up to and including 1959, which is quite soon. And in 1961, they were unable to work out who Marina had as appointed as a successor to her. But they knew that because it was a nunnery, a convent, and a monastery, they knew that the Marina person with the monastery in Keratia, was actually perfect for going under the radar and avoiding any detection. And even sort of right up until 1970, they had no idea who would have taken on after she had passed on. They still didn't have an idea, but they knew that it was a clandestine operation, and they knew that a lot of that was still operating. So she was basically a murderess, and it's one of the most looked at cases across the world because it's an amazing situation around woman serial killers and mass murderers. And right up until recently, actually, everybody was very interested to understand how could it be possible that a monastery and a convent and everything that was around that, right through from 1930, 1940, 1950, right up until when she transitioned, how is it possible that these people in the monastery and in the convent were undetected? So her energies are very, very different. And the prosecution cases only established that there was 177 victims. But that was 27 of them were direct murders, and 150 of them were negligent homicides related to exposure to TB. And this is where it was derived from the medical testimony that was happening during the trials But, and this is a big but, she developed this ability to spread the illness, which was widespread, but more difficultly, they knew when the authorities were investigating, they knew that the deaths could have exceeded 500 because the TB was spreading around where the monastery was, and they were able to pinpoint, the patient, ground zero, patient number 1, and then the other patients were all coming out of that monastery. So it's a very, very interesting case, has a lot of unusual twists and turns, and very different because the way that she was, and the fact that before she joined the monastery itself, there's very, very little known about her. All that everybody knew is that she had worked in a factory. Pretty much that's it. So there's not much about her beforehand. So when you see how this moves forward and how she was able to amass all this money, farms, property, jewelry, gold, diamonds, rubies, all these things, it's very difficult to see her as the nun type of person in the convent of the Virgin in the Pines, because nuns don't actually amass any. They agree to a vow of poverty. I mean, I grew up in convents, and there's no way that any of those nuns would have been, walking around having the high life with all this beautiful clothes and, gold and diamonds and things. And they wouldn't have said, gimme property, give me money, give me 300 houses and farms. Come on, for one person as a nun. No. So there's something more going on, which is why when you and I, Shanti, had a look at it, it was like, what? This is super weird. Exciting one, though.
A lot more going on. Most definitely. I mean, as you say, it's just, but there again, it's for humanity to conceive that is what nuns are doing, and what is going on behind convent walls, when all we've been brainwashed to believe is that these are little old ladies serving God, right? And that you kind of safe there. There's always rumors about nuns being smacking you or whatever. They don't have a very nice reputation. They're very strict. But hey, having grown up in boarding school, I kind of get that with matrons. So you kind of know it's kind of like the same vibe. But for the human being, the average person, to again wrap their head around the fact that is what is happening in a monastery with nuns behind closed doors, when people have been taught to trust, again, we're going back to religion, where people have been taught to trust and hand their power over to not God or source, but to another being or an organization, which is deemed powerful. And of course, isn't the Pope the anointed one, or he claims he's the anointed one that speaks on behalf of Christ for humanity, right? That's so he's, so of course, that's been the brainwashing for such a long time. So to imagine that this was going on is, for the average person, is like inconceivable.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Then if we look at what's going on, if we look at the churches, as far as I'm concerned, there's just a complete, again, this whole conglomeration of evil that exists within the Catholic Church. I'm sorry. When you look at I was actually watching a little video, these things that come up on your news feed, and it shows again the audition room, or the whatever room it is. Is it the audition room? Yes, I think it's the audition room at the Vatican. It's the eyes of the serpent, but if you look carefully, it's eating the sheep.
Oh, Lord.
Someone was doing a decode on it today, and I was watching it, and he actually shows you how it's eating the sheep. So it's coming from that Anunnaki DNA, which are the serpents, right? That literally consume the sheep, which is what human beings are considered to be in their mentality. We, when you look at a human being in its pure form, it's innocent, right? You look at a baby, it's innocent.
Innocent.
It's designed to be good, right? But obviously with the option of always being not good as well, right?
Yeah.
But of course, so we are taught to believe that we are good, or no, sorry, let me rephrase that. We are taught to believe we don't have the knowledge, and that the church is good, and that we should give our power away to the church. And that is exactly where the deception lies.
Yeah.
Because, and when you see how this again has started occurring, and not just started, it's been happening like this for a long time. Nuns, convents, priests, popes, pedophiles. I mean, hello. Anyway, let's see. But this wasn't, this from what we're seeing, this wasn't a case of pedos. This was a case of downright unaliving. So there weren't pedos and things active with these kids. We want to just make that clear.
It was a money grab, just a money grab, but
Yeah,
there was an undercurrent for that. And also when I looked, you'll see the images. When I looked at her specifically, I realized that she had what in the old days was called the nun's illness. And the nun's illness was reproductive, the big C. So that's breast CA, uterus, and all of those other areas had a level of the big C in it. And that is and has been since like days of old. And even right up until I would say the 1970s and before, any breast CA, the big C in the breast, was known, because in medieval times it was always known that the nuns, the abbots, the abbesses, and monks, and those, they had the highest rate of the big C amongst nuns particularly. And that is part of what used to basically take them out. So it was the three ones: uterine, breast, and ovarian, big C. That was then.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, later became known as the nun's disease. It's like what?
But isn't that interesting?
Even when I was in the convent, that's what happened too. I mean, our previous Mother Superior, she was lovely, Irish, little tiny, weeny, little red-headed. You just see this red head out from her habit. And unfortunately for her, she was taken through the big C. She had two of them, and she was just, flat on her back. The poor woman, she suffered terribly. But I would say that during my time at the convent, you would know when you went back to school the next year, if those particular nuns weren't there, you would say, what's happened to so-and-so, Sister Bernadette, Sister Maria, whatever. And they would say, oh, she's been taken to be with the Lord, but she was taken because of the big C. And it was so common, even when I was at school.
Now, as a healer, I always look at the parts of the body that are being affected. Breasts, uterus, and what else did you say? Ovaries. All the feminine organs. All the feminine organs of the body, all the organs of nurturing, of creativity, of creation are being affected. Now, doesn't that tell you something? Now, you see, because when we start listening to how the body talks, and the body does talk, it's got a language of its own, and you just have to learn to listen to it, because it's the most intelligent vehicle you will ever possess, your beautiful body. But the problem is that we don't realize that. And when we start having, when we have a dis-ease there, dis-ease, it's really just saying that the body's out of balance in those areas. And it's healable. When you understand what has created that to begin with, you can heal your body. Your body is designed to heal itself. I've proved that to myself and with many people over and over again. So it's very interesting that the nuns are getting breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterus cancer.
Yeah,
because that is all their feminine organs. So they literally are, it's telling me they are going against the grain of who they are as female women. They are denying their femininity. They are denying who they are as women. And for each one, that it will be something different, right? I'm not saying it's, you use the same template kind of thing, but everyone is going to be different. So that's very interesting. It's very, very interesting about them having the cancer and all the feminine parts.
Yes, all the feminine parts and all the areas that they are taught that they must turn their backs on it, not allowed to even participate in that. So I had a lucky escape, you see, because when my family was pushing me to go and into the cloister, become as a novice nun and all those things, and I went for the review when they were reviewing me at that particular age, and they were like, all we are whispering amongst each other, and Mother Superior came and said to them, "She's not intact. She's not, she's not a pure girl. We can't have her. She's bad. We can't have her. It's a bad egg. She's been touched. Take her away." So I was,
oh my God.
Oh no. So it was a lucky escape. Otherwise, if I'd been intact, I know where I would have been. I'd be in there somehow. But yeah, no, they didn't want to know. When they realized and they did the investigation and that, they thought, oh, this one's trouble. We're not having her.
Shame, Bev. Well, I'm very happy that they realized you weren't their kind of trouble.
Yeah, no, I definitely
you
not.
are kind of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Our kind of trouble. I was the one that got away.
Exactly. And we're happy to have caught you on our escape route.
Exactly. Here I go. Oh, there she goes. Ooh, that's the one.
It's not the escape route, it's the exit route. We just found the exit.
Exit route. So, yeah. I'm out of here. Bye-bye, Louis.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Right. Okay. So, are we gonna? Which one are we starting first? Which one are we gonna put?
I think first? we can lead up to the big one.
This one.
So the first one.
That one.
Yeah. This one is the overall view. So if you have a look, you can see at the bottom, we've got the connection to the soil, the connection to the earth. Because one thing we had with her energy, we realized that the energy that she had around her, she was very, very good at being able to not only to sell herself, but to sell what the convent was doing, to sell the religion, and to get people to believe in her, because she was an excellent salesperson. When you see in the middle, we see that bright light coming out. And we see also around the toroidal field, we see the glittering energies of rubies, diamonds, and all sorts. That the one that we see right on the outside, we see her pulling in the energy. And then we see also we've got a number of orbs again, which is very similar to all of serial killers. They have a lot of the orbs. They pull in a lot of the energy. Not only do they take the lives of individuals as a serial killer, but they also take energy. So they're also psychic vampires in pulling in and taking off a lot of the energy. So she was able to do the same thing. And then the next area going around her, you can see all these 177 individual energies and people that were part of her soul plan where she had agreed to play that role for those people, which is very unusual because they needed somebody to be not the fall person, but the person to be the perpetrator, to be the one that would be the one that would be like the manager or the person that would give the orders or define what was going to happen to those people. And to date, it's 177. And when I was looking into her energy field, it was way more than 177. It was closer to 500. So who knows where the rest of them are or where the rest of the remains are or whatever. But if you just look at it just by the stats, she had 300 properties and farms, but only 177 remains were found. That doesn't actually match up. That doesn't compute. It really doesn't. You can't get 300 farms and properties from 177 people. It's not possible. So that tells us there's a mismatch. So that's why the investigators continued looking into her background, because of the number of properties they found that she had, and also the gold, the diamonds, the jewelry, and all of that was all part and parcel of what she was doing. Then we see that she's got at the bottom area, we see that there's food and energies of food on the pelvic area. So there was a lot to do with preferential types of food. So there was food in there of, things like vegetables and fruit and, things that were hard to come by, like strawberries, like individual preferences, where even though she was not going out and having a good time and having her jollies, she was still having things that others didn't have. So things like, very expensive fruits like strawberries and others. That was expensive in those days. It's not something that you would just get. And particular types of fruit that was, overseas fruits and that. So she was spoiling herself by allowing herself to have something spent for her specifically. So as the leader of this convent, she wasn't going out and having a good time at night, etc., but she was actually giving herself a better life and standard by being able to eat really good food to keep herself going. So that was an unusual one. Then we have a look at the other chakra points. They're all very normal. They're the same size. They're not really doing very much. And the two hands on each side, she had a very large energy ball on each side, which does mean that she has a lot of energy and she was able to manipulate individuals, and she gave the order because she made sure that using that energy ball that she was able to look on the outside very normal, even though she was absolutely abusive and would take part in beatings of other nuns to a point where she had helped to beat them to the point where they had organ failure and had to be removed and taken to hospital. And that starts to distinguish her from a normal person into being a killer or a serial killer. And that's where it starts, is she had that dormant volcano. So beneath that very bland, basic, nondescript type of person was that unbelievably cursed sorcerer type person that had these ups and downs and significant neurological issues. But she managed to hide them all. She had a rage response to a lot and didn't really have much remorse, actually. When you see those energies, particularly psychologically, there was a lot of issue with her on that. And it was all sort of woven into the tapestry of her energies. She was able to mask a lot. She was able to hide what was going on in her mind And she was like a power keg that was ready just to explode whenever the emotional roller coaster was hitting her. And when you see the first, this is the first one, but when you see the next three images, and you then realize, because I didn't want to make one that was so busy that you couldn't look at them in separate. So what I've done is I've separated them into 4 different images. But this is the first one, which is very clear exactly what she was doing. Do you have any comment on this one, Shanti?
Oh, yeah. What's clear to me as you're talking, I follow your words, and your words take me in a place that goes even deeper and beyond. So I'm looking at the soul path here. The soul path has had lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of abuse.
Wow.
The soul knows nothing other than abuse. And it's become so clear to me because this is not the first time that she's done this. This is it's like she's traveled, her soul has traveled across entire multiverse, if that makes sense, where she has collected knowledge, means to take, like a magnet. It's so true what you're saying. Those hands also, she's like a sorceress.
Yes.
I wouldn't even be surprised if this one can even shapeshift. I'm not saying she can, but I'm saying that she is able to. No, I'm not saying she does, but I'm saying she is able to. This is a very adept soul who's learned how to operate in the dark for many, 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 many lives. If you look at her solar plexus, that chakra there, and of course the inverted aspect of the solar plexus is greed, fear, domination. You know, when you're looking at dictators and things, and all these politicians, they've always got a distorted solar plexus. Everything else is kind of like minimalized compared to the solar plexus, which is this negative polarity that is greed, power, control, right? As opposed to positive aspect, it's solution orientated, radiating, empowering, giving back, sharing, creating, right? It's a very powerful chakra body. So that's the one she's completely learned how to harness. So she's got a lot of karma. And I think what I see is a lot of the people that she's actually taken life from are not only from this life. It's like every little face I see in there has got a face and a face and a face and a face in it. So there's like a multitude. She carries so much karmic debt. This is a soul that is so burdened with karmic debt. She didn't know how to whatever. It's just grab. It's not even about using or trying to give the money away like a Robin Hood type of thing. Just as long as I can have it, I'm happy. Her fear of not having is so great that she has gone to these extremes to get. You see that when we're looking at the fear of not having, and that's the solar plexus chakra. So the fear of not having, a fear of poverty consciousness, is so great that she has gone to these lengths to steal, murder, um, use every single trick in the book. She's traveled to many destinations and many journeys in her lives to gather these tricks. I'll tell you that much. She sat with the devil, like in inverted commas. She sat with the devil, literally. She sold her soul over and over again to get this.
It is. And it's very similar. I mean,
That's my commentary.
seen similar types of energetics where there's been some individuals in cults that come across and say, well, we can do this and we can do that. The fact that she was saying that she could cure TB, tuberculosis, and never gave anybody any medication. The doctors never went to the monastery. They never assisted. The only time the doctors went to the monastery was to sign the certificates that are needed to say this person has expired at this monastery. And we do see this all over the world. There are similar individuals that do have this type of ability, and they will push that out on others. And then those that react are the ones that, they've taken the bait. They're like fishing, and then they grab the bait. And they're of all different types, shapes, sizes, individuals. And you do get these, sort of like, we would call them fake individuals, if you like, all over the world. And they're very obvious. And I think that there are those that are still pushing their wares. And when they're very clever nowadays, they wouldn't put it all into a monastery, or they wouldn't be silly like she was and put, 300 properties and farms in her own name. I mean, and then gold and diamonds and jewelry and things. That was really silly. Eventually, she was going to get caught. But the good thing is that people did cotton onto her. And as it is, when there is the light of source or Lord's light or great creator provides a light on something, it won't be necessarily that specific criminal activity with her, which is why I had a giggle when I saw it was because she had dared to export olive oil of all things, and then they started digging.
Yeah.
My word. And then what they found, oh Lord. So the other images go into some of the other levels. So this is the first one that I looked at. So we've got the next one that comes on, which shows you a bit more about them and a bit more about her.
Okay, is it this one?
Yeah, it's this one.
Which one are we going to look at next?
We'll look at the one that you've got up, which was the organic tentacles going out. So exactly as you had said, pardon me, exactly as you had said, have a look at the energy where we're seeing that big tunnel of past life. So we've got all the people at the bottom, which, as you said as well, there's hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes. But where we've got lots of symbols, the symbols here that are swirling around her is all the past lives. So we've got Egyptian, we've got Greek symbolism, we've got Turkish symbolism, we've got hundreds of other lifetimes. So I wanted to use this particular symbolic image of her energy body that then attaches itself to the Akashic records, which shows us that that huge tunnel that we see developing behind her is actually all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. And that this one is the one to demonstrate what you have just said about all these hundreds of lifetimes. And then the octopus tentacles, that was the best way that I could find to explain this, the green grabbing that was coming out from her heart chakra, is because she wanted to be able to make sure that she reduces whatever it was that she was trying to get over from the past life. She made sure that she grabbed as much as she could. She knew she couldn't take it with her, but she knew at least if she could take and start stockpiling, that at least she would be able to get rid of that increasing desire to have, because she didn't have before. So that's that one. And then the next one, I look at a different level of layer. So if we can go to the next.
Very interesting one. This because I just want to comment on this, the octopus tentacles. And definitely, I mean, I've worked with people who have energy like this. and they are the biggest thieves. Seriously. Criminals. I mean, those are, I mean, think about that octopus energy with those gazillion little suckers on.
Yeah.
They are all over and they are sucking and stealing on everything. It's crazy energy, that. And if you think about each, you know, the heart chakra energy is supposed to be light free. It's what flies, right?
Yes.
But when in its negative polarity, exactly like this is a very good depiction. The tentacles like come out, hold on to the material goods, like the money, the houses, whatever it is, cars, whatever, right? And it weighs the heart down. It pulls you down, man. That's exactly what weighs you down. It keeps you in hell. That's the vibration that literally keeps you in hell.
Yeah, it's
Very
quite
interesting.
something. So what I did try
Okay,
to
on
do.
this one, you want to look at this one?
So this one, what we see is we see her wading almost belly button deep in trying to remove and walk through what has happened in the past life. So these codes that we see are the not just angelic codes, but also the codes of all of the lifetimes. So I think she must have had many lifetimes of suffering. That's a definite. And when you see all the codes swirling, and that's when I did this one, I was trying to depict the swirling energy around her, where she was really battling to try to understand, what on earth am I going to do to deal with this? Because she definitely she felt that she was hard done by. She definitely felt that within herself, she did not have the capability to be able to move forward. And she had this desperation. She also had a feeling of betrayal. She felt that she would feel that she would lose her loved ones, and that she could then, through losing her loved ones, consume a person's thought and lead them down a dark path. So from that point of view, she decided quite early in life, she decided that she would allow herself to move away from experiencing that feeling of loss. So she decided, if I join the convent, it's on my terms. I'm going to take control. I'm not going to be the tragic person that loses a loved one, or loses a husband, or loses my mum, or loses my dad. I'm going to stop the fight or flight response, and I'm not going to allow any tragedy like that to manifest itself in my life. I'm taking control. I will enter into being a nun, and I will take the power into my own hands. And that's why the previous images we saw the big bright white energies in her hands, because she did have a powerful force, but she was able to decide that that force would be on her terms. And that's exactly what she did. And she was able then to resort to extreme measures because she had nothing to lose. She'd already taken any hopelessness or desperation out of her life. She said, no, I'm not. And I'm also not going to buy in or be backed into a corner where I had to look at my own moral constraints. She removed that. She removed all emotional consequence. She removed jealousy. She removed envy. She removed all of that out of her life because she decided, I don't care now if I lose my parents. I don't have a beau. I don't have somebody that I can be jealous if he was looking at somebody else. So she put that to the side. And if you think about it, she was basically just herself. That was it. So any aftermath that she had through riding any emotional roller coaster, she was like a power keg waiting to explode with all those huge spectrums of emotions, because she didn't have a normal life, but she chose that. And that gave her tremendous power. So the only thing that she was then able to do was to push forward and decide any anger that she has or desperation would end up in her harming somebody else. If she thought that they were going to shift, pass, and go across her path and cross her path in such a way to say, oh, I don't like what you're doing, this is ridiculous, why are you doing that? she would then say, no, you're usurping my authority, and you're saying that things that you shouldn't say, and she'd get them beaten. So absolute nightmare of a person, totally emotionally detached, disassociated. And that's why it made it very easy for her not to look at these victims that she had, the 177, but to just carry on and move forward with, moving and expiring people, because she had such a strong protective barrier around herself that all of her actions was the sense of self, and her psychological defense mechanisms enabled her to commit unbelievably horrific acts, starving people, beating people, leaving children to just pass away without any food. And from that point of view, she entered like her own surreal, dreamlike state. And that's where the violence and emotion then became intertwined, and almost was defying any explanation with her, because she never came from that. But she had that ability to recognize her fellow human beings and totally discount any feelings that they may have. This is what it is. Everything was about that specific energy, is removing what she was feeling, how she was feeling, because it was all about her. And then the next plate, or the next image that we get, shows where you can see the images start to show how she was able to do this, which is this one. So we've got the nun. We can see how she's literally becoming part and one, and planting herself into the earth and pulling up all of that energy into herself, that redness, that anger that she had, where she really did not want to be a person that was involved with any emotion. So she pushed all of that down. And when you have a look, you can see the red energy, which is the sexual energy, that was being pushed into the ground. That was being put away. And it was being put into the ground as roots. She didn't want it. Not prepared to be part of that. I will make my own life. I will push forward in my own life, my way, my terms, the way I want it, the way I see it. So it's a very dark energy. And then when we see all of the images that are going around her, is all of the peoples. And it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Not just 177, not just 500, even more than that. So scarily, she touched a lot of lives. And with those energies that you see in her hands, she was very, very strong and was able to push that out to other people. So all of those energies give us a really good background, probably the best and simple explanation is the ability to recognize who could be the next victim. And then any aftermath from that, after the deed was done, that emotional landscape as a murderer allowed her to go through all these amazing transformations, bringing in the dark energy, allowing that reaction, because she did get over it. I mean, the first couple of times that she managed to push somebody into signing over their property and all their wealth, she did have a bit of a shock. And it was a level of disbelief at what they had done to other people. Because I use the word they with her, because it wasn't just her. She was being pushed to do this. And then you'd have that dark energy where the reality of what she had done was able to sink into her. And that's when that tidal wave started to overwhelm her. So it was the self-loathing. But for her, the experience of getting people to a point where, and she never saw it as murdering individuals, actually. She saw it as allowing them to expire She never felt that she was actually killing people. And she was quite happy. She could sleep. I didn't see any of the energies around her which you would expect to see with someone who had actually, moved 177 people off this mortal coil. You'd expect them to have some sort of emotion in their aura where they, try to understand what is the enormity of their actions. She never had any of that. None of it. Nope. Nope. She also never had, I didn't see any fear. I didn't see fear of the consequences. I didn't see some of the other killers that I've worked on. They were like absolutely paranoid. It's like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me? They start watching the door. They make sure that they know what's happening around them. And they're always, they jump feet every time there's a sound that they weren't expecting. They become hyper vigilant. She didn't. The fear wasn't there. She wasn't consumed by what she was doing. Not at all. She didn't have erratic behavior. There was none of those energies there. And she was quite able to cope with these overwhelming emotions that she had, but she was very clever. And some of those balls of energies that you see around her, she was able to rationalize everything. She was very, very clever at justifying whatever was happening around her. So this is a very difficult energy of a person that is self-sufficient, serves only herself, and is able to control pretty much everything around her, because she's like a tree. She's got her base in the ground, and doesn't matter how hard that wind is that blows on her, she'll stand up to it, and she will give as good as she gets. Very, very dangerous person. What do you think of it, Shanti?
Yeah, totally. Um, I don't, when I look at her energy as well, it's coming from a place where, as I was saying earlier, this is lifetimes and lifetimes of darkness that she has cultivated within her, and wounding, lots and lots of wounding. So what we're looking at there really is a typical psychopath narcissist who has absolutely been hurt too many times, so many times over and over that that's all they know. And really, at the end of the day, isn't that what we're dealing with globally right now? When we're looking at the whole satanic system, when you're looking at so many of the people in power, right? They all started off being kids, and they all had a similar thing. And the way I see it is that they all pretty much operate on a similar energy. But I cannot help but feel that she did not operate alone. That feeling for me has not left. This woman was not a nun. We know that she was not a nun. She was some kind of an operative, operating and disguising herself as a nun. And my opinion is that yes, although that she had so many farms and jewels and things that she glorified herself in with when she wasn't around, right? When she had a day off or a weekend off or whatever from the monastery, or maybe in the privacy of her own bunker, who knows? But she's having conversations with people behind the scenes. It's like she, to me, would be the same then as what an MK Ultra victim would be today. Now, I don't believe MK Ultra was maybe around then as the way that it is now, but demonic entities and that sort of stuff and possession certainly have been. And for me, and torture, a child torture has been going on since forever, right? So for me, she's a product of that, and not just now, but lifetime after lifetime. I am of the opinion that she was She's some type of a covert agent. And part of the money, and it's like they set her up to be this person who could be trusted, right? She had a great ability to elicit trust from people. That I can tell you for just by looking at the energy. She had a great ability to manipulate people. And so she would have been used to draw people in. And pretty much, I don't believe necessarily people knew what she was doing behind the scenes of the monastery. No, I don't think, but she was certainly sending money somewhere. Someone was also receiving, there were recipients of money that she was also sending people this money, this wealth that she was consuming. Because if you look, she only worked with women and children, right?
Yeah.
So she had a great ability to attract women and children into her camp. And I think that she's definitely some type of an operative. She was working with more powerful people behind her. I can't help but feel and see and sense there's energies behind her and big ones. So that to me would say it's some kind of an organization, that it's a church or political parties or something like that. People that were controlling her. Absolutely. There was, to me, there's a strong level of control there. She's definitely controlled by something or someone. I don't see who's pulling the strings, but there's control there. So there was definitely some type of money that was being exchanged. I don't think they necessarily knew how she was getting her money all the time and the lengths she was going to. That was also her own evil deed. That a blind eye was turned to that. I see heads being turned away. It's like they were not looking. As long as there was no commotion there, it didn't matter. They were getting their money, they were being funded. She was doing a job and she was doing it well. She had the power and the control, and that was all that mattered. Because if we see, it's always about power and control, always about power and control, always about power and control. So she was their asset, if you want to call it that, who was able to get line her pockets as well, work independently as well, but at the same time, in modern day language, let's call it she had handlers.
Of course, yes. Yeah, that is exactly what it is. And that's how she was able to amass the level of power that she did.
Yeah.
It was significant. I mean, when I saw the overview of the 300 properties and the gold and the diamonds, etc., it was not just hundreds of thousands, it was millions and millions.
I definitely know she was not working alone, but it's like a lot of it was supernatural. But these people are so adept at supernatural, that supernatural is the order of the day for them. Well, for us normies, it would seem like supernatural. But definitely there was for sure money being exchanged in a very slick way, glib, glib, glib. It's like, it's not like clunk, 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 right?
No.
It's like the money was sent out cleverly in a slick way.
Yeah.
So it couldn't really be traced back. But, and I think, Beverli, what's still going to happen here is there's like, so much to be picked open, so many little lids, so many little, if I look at that picture, all those little dots around the outside, which, I mean, I understand that's all energies and entities and things, but to me, that is like a little lid you open. And when you pop it open, there's another little worm that's going to pop out of there, and another little worm, and another little worm. I think we're looking at a wormhole here.
There's a lot of
a
them there.
wormhole, a wormhole of nonsense. Because again, like with Epstein, like with even Oscar Pistorius that we were talking about the last time, right? And the family, who the family bloodlines belong to. There's a long row of tentacles going there as well. It's the same thing here. If you start opening up this Pandora's box, it's going to link you back to Russia, the Bolsheviks. I'm telling you, the whole Greek, the whole Greek monarchy, all of that. I'm telling you, this is going back to powerful stuff. Like she was linked to the Russians, the Bolsheviks, right? She was linked to the Greeks, high Orthodox Greeks. If you're looking at that, my money says that's where her money was going. Part of it, anyway, is to churches and political parties. And that's why this thing has been covered. And yeah. And if you earlier on, you were saying as well about other bones and things about where the other bodies were. They're there. There's a wherever part of where she was. I'm not sure if it's the convent or another property. There's a body of water there. A lot of those bodies were put into a body of water. So water, and that's where a lot of those bodies went. Children crying alive. And it's interesting because you see, it's what you were saying. It's like she didn't just kill the parents, she killed their offspring as well. So they had no claim to their fortunes.
Yeah, this is it. And it's a very difficult, it's a very difficult past and a very difficult current lifetime that she was in. And I think she
Yes.
will want her story to be told, but it is going to be one of those that a lot more of the evidence needs to come out so that those that haven't been found can at least be at peace.
Absolutely.
So the next one that we've got the one of the ones which shows.
We have one more, I think, yeah?
We do. Yeah, just one more, the last one. So this was where she was able to push all of her energies out and into the cosmos and away. So she did get to the point as part of the emotions that she had, is that those actions where she hadn't been caught had taken a great toll on her own mental health. And she had started to live in emotional turmoil. And that's where we see with this image here, is we see that she's not able to control it anymore. And you see about all of what she's done, all those energies where it's coming into her, where her skirt is and where it's moving up her torso. She can't get away from that energy. And I think that is part and parcel of where she wasn't able to come to terms with everything. That weight of that secret, in a way, became insurmountable. And that allowed her to feel this unbelievably profound level of loneliness and isolation. And she then also had this desperation with anxiety and depression. And she knew that she had to keep those secrets, because although she was caught and she ended up only spending 14 or 15 years in prison, she was always under the fear of discovery. She was always trying to maintain this false personality, and that was what was giving her the stress. She was not able to experience emotions. She did not have the psychological profile, and she wasn't able to understand emotional patterns. She just did not have that understanding. And she was not able to allow empathy or remorse to even become part of her at all. And that's why she wasn't able to feel emotions. And when we see this image, we can see that She's trying to pull her energy from the base, pull it up from the baseline of the earth, but wasn't able to.
I mean,
her,
that is so. Sorry, Bev.
that's okay, go ahead.
It's like, it's so, that to me is like a serpent energy that keeps her connected and completely locked to the lower, to the hellish realms. Because when we again looking at the chakra system in the body, right, the lower three chakras, so the root chakra, the sacral and solar plexus, when in inverted form, literally keep you stuck in hell. So that's the money, the power, the sex, the fear, all of that stuff that keeps us stuck in the lower realms. This woman is so stuck in the lower realms, and absolutely, I mean, to me, she certainly had tons of addictions. That she was always needing to consume something. So that this black hole, and exactly that serpent looking thing that takes her into the hellish realms, is exactly that. It's like that black hole that never gets filled. No matter how much money you have, no matter how many gold and diamonds and rings and strawberries you can eat, right? There's something in you that cannot be filled. I say she's had a secret, definitely a double life or a quadruple life,
Yes.
where definitely there were times I see her almost, I wouldn't be surprised if she actually had a double life and almost lived like a prostitute on the other side of that. If you think about that, I see her as well in her times where she's wearing her glitzy glam and she's talking. She liked that. She loved that. There was that. She could shapeshift or morph into that, right? And so, absolutely would definitely enjoy, if you're looking at the lower chakras. I mean, the lower chakras keep you stuck in hell because there's a sexual addiction there. And that's why we look at a lot of these monsters. There's big sexual addictions there, right?
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm going to say that she actually would have lived a life, a double life, this woman, where she was living the complete opposite of what she lived in the monastery. So I will even go as far as saying I wouldn't be surprised if she was enjoying her body with the opposite sex to the fullest. I'm just going to put it there, right? Absolutely. I feel that she had so many different aspects of that character of hers. She could morph into so many different things. And that, I think, is why they would have used her. But that's also why they were scared of her. And that's also why they let her have her free will, because she called the shots as well. It's not like she was some little slave that was working for them. She was calling shots as much as what they were calling shots. This was kind of like whoever she was feeding and whoever was feeding her, she was all the time making contracts with different types of entities and energies all the time to keep this sucking, feeding, eating, consuming energy.
Yeah, definitely. And she has that emotional sadism as well, where she was able to derive pleasure from causing other people emotional pain, which is very different from an individual who is causing physical pain. And with that, the type of extinction that she was bringing about. I mean, when you look at the case history and what these people, what conditions her victims were held in, underneath the convent, it looked like a medieval dungeon. Really, it did. And the
Yeah,
perverse emotional gratification that she had became the driving force behind the repeated acts of violence starvation and that very dark emotion where she really didn't care a flying feather. If somebody expired in the dungeon, doesn't matter to me. They can expire. And this is what they did with the court case. When you read the court case, you can see that after she got the dates signed and these people were coerced or pressurized, or they utilized brutal torture for these people to sign away their properties. Literally, they were signing away their warrant for them to expire, because after that, they got nothing. They never got any food. They never got anything after that. They were basically just left to rot in the dungeon because she got what she wanted. And that's where her own emotions turned quite deadly.
Yeah, because she didn't care anymore.
Exactly. She got what she wanted.
Total psychopath.
Yeah, she got what she wanted. Yeah.
Total psychopath.
It's
well, that's unfortunately what we're dealing with in this whole world, aren't we? This is what we really are dealing with in the governments right now, because that there, to me, I think the lesson in Mother Rasputin's holy vows and unholy crimes tonight for me has been that this truly, was a walking, talking example of what controls the world. Who and what controls the world. That's what we're dealing with. I think she's a perfect template for us to actually see that.
Yeah, understanding exactly where she was coming from, I think, is crucial for a lot of reasons, because then we can develop a better, basically more effective crime prevention strategy. And we can look at what are these people doing and how can we target specific individuals for rehabilitation. Because we've got, our jails here in the UK, and I'm sure in South Africa and other areas, they're overflowing. So we need to start gaining further insight into these really dark corners of criminal minds. Because it's essential now for ethical, to us look at it ethically and understand what is the emotion of people that have developed this level of, the wave of the crime, so we don't lose sight of the immense suffering that these people have caused, directed by their actions. So, the victims and their loved ones must always be in the energy of, because it's not just the victims, but their loved ones are suffering too.
Totally. Totally. And of course, again, it's not just, we understand, as you said, the victims, the loved ones, the families. It's, when something violent like that happens in your family or in your immediate vicinity, in your circle, whatever, it really does affect one hugely. And that, again, when we look at how all the familial bloodlines, etc., it's all affected by this. And we need to seek to understand. Absolutely seek to understand. And sure, and it's so true. Let's not even talk about the jails and stuff, please.
It's huge. It's huge, but it's a worldwide issue. It really is.
Absolutely worldwide. It absolutely is. And the more we understand, and the more the more we just expose this. Feels like we're trying to break down the Berlin Wall with a teaspoon some days, right?
Indeed, a teaspoon. Yeah, it does, because people don't see it. And the issue, I think part of the issue is that when I used to live in South Africa, there was one or two particular organizations that used to say to me, come and do some work with our inmates. Come and see. But then they used to say, we're not telling you anything about these people. Sit with them. See what the toroidal field says. See what you see. And in those days, I used to have coloring in pencils. And I used to sit with a template and I used to draw and color. And then I would sit and I'd sit with the clinicians. I'd say, this is what I see. This is what this color means. This is what that color means. And you could see them. They were like, oh my goodness, how come do you see that? And then they'd say, I'd rather just give you the file. You can read the file, because everything that you've said based on the colors and where they are and how they are is exactly what the issue we have with that particular inmate. That is what is happening with that person. But yet, simplistically, not from a clinical side, you're coming at it from a color, from a toroidal field, from energy, frequency,
Exactly.
vibration. And they would always be fascinated. And we had a lovely time. We did an experiment once, 3 patients, 3 sets of clinicians, and myself. And we would then put all our findings into an envelope. And they would give their reading, they would give their review, and then I would have mine. And then at the end of it, we had all of the press, and all of the envelopes were opened. They had been sealed with wax. And in the pulpit, they opened them, and they said, they read each one out, each of the doctors, and then they read mine last. And everything that the doctors had said, I had said, just with the toroidal field, the color, and what they mean. And even though mine was in basic, general, everyday speak, not clinical talk, not diagnosis, it was exactly the same. And that was,
Wow.
what, 50 years ago.
There is a way through and there is a way out. There is an exit. And we'll find it.
Very well. So,
Beverli, thank you again for joining me.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure. And thank you for going into your level of detail as well with this particular case, because it's something I think that is, has got all of the levels that we could be looking at. And it's something that could form a baseline of understanding how energy penetrates across centuries and how she was reacting to what was happening to her century after century. Very interesting. I found it very interesting because of the way that this was put forward, and all of the research that I did looking at, particularly the case history, was unbelievable.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, join us again, everybody. We'll be back on Solutions, same time, same place next week. And if you didn't watch our show last night on ARA, Aquarius Rising Africa, catch it there. We spoke about Epstein and Maxwell, and yeah, similar type vibe to what we were doing tonight. Very, very interesting. Cool. Beverli, anything you want to say in closing? And I know that your details are all in the description area, but is there anything you'd like just to end off in closing? And yeah, where are you?
Yes, I would like to say
where can
to
people find you?
Try to start working through your own shadow work. Start looking at, what is your energy saying about you, because it's a perfect time right now. We've got 3-eye atlas. We have all of the other meteors and all of the comets that are coming. There's 17 additional ones coming. Plus, we have all the changes on Earth. So it's a good time to understand your own energy body. So I know a lot of people are saying, oh, I've got in touch with you through Insta or wherever to say, that you would like a particular, one of these drawings. Yes, I do them. Please let me know either via email or leave a message on the website. There is a minor fee for that. I think it's probably between 15 and 20 pounds. It's really small. And I do need a picture of you, though, because I need to know what you are, who you are, so that I can see what energies are around you. And then you can start doing the work on yourself. You can start doing the shadow work. You could start doing the healing, because that's where it'll start, is for you to understand where is your energy, what is your energy, and what it is that you can start focusing on right now, because that is the time is right now. We're all moving from a carbon body into a crystalline body. So do the work, and you'll find that your life's path will move forward in leaps and bounds.
I muted myself again. Definitely time to do the shadow work. So indeed, I agree. Okay, everybody, take it easy. God bless you all. And I will see you Wednesday tomorrow back on Arrow with Double Trouble Jesse. Take good care, guys.
Lovely. See you next week.